The 47th hospital admission did not exist on paper, but Nora Bell was staring at the payment trail that proved a woman had been treated, hidden, and then erased. The claim carried no patient name, no physician signature, and no discharge code. It did carry a charity transfer number tied to the Moretti Medical Foundation, and if Nora reported it before she knew who had removed the record, someone inside the hospital could destroy the remaining evidence or silence the women connected to it. At 48, Nora had spent 23 years studying how institutions lied through duplicate codes, altered timestamps, and shifted responsibility. She was a beautiful, full-figured woman with luminous fair skin, gray-green eyes, and dark auburn hair pinned into a loosening twist. Careless people underestimated her. Numbers never did. She compared the electronic ledger to the printed reimbursement report for the third time. 47 emergency admissions had been billed through the foundation over 6 years. Each patient had entered the hospital through the private trauma wing. Each file had later been stripped of identifying information and reclassified as charity transfer, resolved. Resolved was not a medical outcome. Nora slid on cotton evidence gloves and opened the sealed claims box assigned to the most recent discrepancy. Inside were 2 blank consent forms, a broken plastic wristband, and a small silver medal cracked through the image of a saint. A dark red thread remained caught in the loop. She placed the medal beneath the desk lamp. Someone had scratched 3 letters into the back. LMC. The basement door opened. Nora covered the medal with her gloved palm before she looked up. Luca Moretti entered without an escort, though the silence behind him suggested security was close. He was 45, tall and broad-shouldered, with black hair brushed neatly back and a restrained face that gave away little. His charcoal suit was expensive without being showy. The hospital had a public board, but the Moretti Foundation influenced every major decision. He stopped across from her desk. You were instructed to end the audit at 6. I was instructed to review all foundation claims from the last fiscal year. It is nearly midnight. That does not make the missing records less missing. His gaze moved to the open box, then to her hand. What did you find? Nora closed the lid halfway. Before I answer, I need confirmation that no one has accessed this room since I signed in. You have it. I need it in writing. A faint tension appeared beside his mouth. You believe I tampered with your evidence? I believe powerful organizations prefer verbal assurances because verbal assurances leave no trail. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he took out his phone, typed a message, and placed its screen up on the desk. The head of security is preserving all access logs. You will receive a signed copy within 10 minutes. Nora studied the message. Thank you. His eyes returned to the box. Now show me. She lifted the cracked metal by its edge. His shoulders went rigid, and the color left his face. Where did you get that? In a sealed claims container assigned to patient file C47. Give it to me. No. His gaze sharpened. Miss Bell, the metal is evidence. Until I finish documenting it, no one touches it. That metal belonged to my sister. Nora lowered the metal onto a clean evidence sheet. What was her name? Luca did not answer immediately. Lucia Moretti Calder, he said at last. She died 7 years ago. Nora looked at the initials again. LMC. What was the official cause? A car accident. Was she ever treated at St. Catherine's? No. The denial came too quickly. Nora turned the monitor toward him and enlarged the billing trail. Then someone used her initials on a hidden admission tied to your foundation. The record was created the night before her death. Luca read the screen without moving. Who else has seen this? No one. Keep it that way. That is not your decision. It becomes my decision if exposing that file puts living women at risk. You knew these records existed? I knew the foundation funded confidential care. Confidential is not the same as erased. There are women who cannot safely appear in standard hospital systems. Wives of judges. Daughters of union leaders. Women whose abusers own police captains and prosecutors. And dead women? His jaw tightened. Nora let the silence work. Luca finally spoke. My sister was not one of them. Then help me prove it. He looked toward the door. You will suspend the audit until I review the Foundation's private protocols. No. His attention snapped back to her. My contract gives me independent access, Nora said. If I suspend without documenting why, I become part of the concealment. You are speaking about systems you do not understand. I understand that 47 women entered this hospital and disappeared from its official records. I understand that your sister may have been one of them, and I understand that someone marked every file resolved whether the woman walked out alive or not. The last words landed. Luca crossed to the wall of filing cabinets and rested one hand against the metal. For the first time, Nora saw something beneath the discipline, not anger, but fear. My sister came to me 2 days before she died, he said. She wanted access to Foundation accounts. I refused. Why? She was frightened, unfocused. She accused people without evidence. Which people? My Aunt Teresa, 2 hospital trustees, a family attorney who is now dead. Nora felt the shape of the mystery shift. What did she say they were doing? She said they were hiding women. Was she right? I believed she was trying to protect someone who had lied to her. And now? Luca looked at the medal. Now I believe I may have been wrong. The admission cost him. A knock sounded. A security supervisor entered, handed Nora a signed access report, and left without speaking. Luca had kept his word. Nora reviewed the sheet. One entry stood out. Who is Teresa Moretti? My father's sister. She chairs the Foundation. She accessed this audit room 3 nights ago. Luca took the report from her, then stopped when Nora raised a hand. That is a copy, she said. The original stays with me. He set it back down. He accepted the limit without argument. Teresa oversees donor privacy, he said. She had reason to be here. Then she can explain that reason tomorrow. No. Nora met his eyes. You do not get to ask me for the truth while shielding the person most likely to know it. She is 68 years old and has protected this family for 4 decades. That is loyalty. It is not evidence of innocence. His expression hardened, but he did not threaten her. Instead, he walked to the far end of the room and removed his jacket. He looked ready to dismantle something. What do you need? He asked. Unrestricted access to the private trauma ward's archived claims, including paper intake logs. Those records are sealed. Then unseal them. If I do, I may expose women whose lives depend on anonymity. If you do not, we may leave the person erasing them in control. The choice was clear: protect secrecy that might save survivors, or break it before secrecy became a weapon. Luca considered her for a long moment. You will not copy names. I will code identities until we determine immediate risk. You will not contact patients without medical counsel. I will work through Dr. Miriam Cole, the trauma surgeon listed on 12 of the billing entries. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. You found Miriam's name? It was removed from the files, not the payment authorizations. You are very good at this. I am careful. There is a difference. He took out a black access card and placed it on the desk between them. This opens the archived ward records. Nora did not reach for it. And the cameras? Security will preserve footage but will not monitor your screen. No one follows me. That puts you at risk. It also keeps your people from deciding what I am allowed to find. He exhaled slowly. Agreed. He had surrendered control because she required it. Nora picked up the card. They entered the private trauma archive through a service elevator hidden behind the hospital chapel. 12 locked cabinets lined the records room. A faded red ribbon had been tied around the handle of the final drawer. The same shade as the thread caught in the metal. Nora photographed it before touching anything. Inside, 46 folders had been filed under coded numbers. The 47th space was empty. Luca stood beside her. Lucia's file. Maybe. Nora checked the drawer rails. A thin paper edge protruded beneath the metal base. She removed the drawer and found a single intake sheet flattened underneath. The patient name had been blacked out. The admission date matched the night before Lucia's death. The attending physician was Dr. Miriam Cole. And beneath the authorization line, in firm black ink, was Luca Moretti's signature. Nora turned the page toward him. He stared at it, all color draining from his face. "I never signed this," he said. But the signature was dated, witnessed, and attached to an emergency order freezing the patient's record before anyone outside the foundation could see it. Nora looked from the page to the cracked metal in her evidence bag. Someone had not merely hidden Lucia's final night. Someone had used Luca's own authority to bury it. Luca read the authorization twice, then a third time, as if repetition might force the ink to confess. "That is my signature," he said. Nora heard what he did not say. Not forged, not copied. His. "You remember signing something that night?" "No." He looked at the admission date again. "Lucia came to my office before dinner. She was agitated. She said Teresa had turned the foundation into a place where women disappeared twice, first from their homes, then from the truth." "What did you do?" "I told her accusations were not evidence." Nora folded her arms. "And after that?" "She left. Teresa called an hour later and said Lucia had suffered a breakdown. She asked me to authorize an emergency privacy freeze until the family physician could evaluate her. And you signed it." "I signed a blank emergency order through the foundation portal." The words settled heavily between them. Nora lifted the intake sheet. "Then this is not a forged signature. Someone attached your valid authorization to a patient record you never reviewed." Luca's face tightened. Teresa had access. So did anyone using her credentials. He looked toward the locked cabinets. "You think she used me?" "I think someone knew you would protect the family before asking what the family was hiding." That struck deeper than accusation. Luca turned away, one hand braced against the cabinet. Nora photographed the intake sheet, recorded its position, and sealed it in a temporary evidence sleeve. "We need Dr. Miriam Cole. She retired 4 years ago." "Retired is not vanished. She lives outside the city. If Teresa is involved, approaching Miriam openly could expose her. Then we do it carefully." Luca faced her again. "You are assuming Miriam wants to be found." "I am assuming she deserves the choice." A long silence followed. "Tomorrow morning," he said. "No guards inside her home. No pressure. If she refuses, we leave." Nora studied him. "And no one searches her property." "You have my word." It was not trust, but it was a beginning. They left the archive after 2 in the morning. Luca offered a car. Nora declined. "You have been awake for nearly 20 hours, he said. "So have you. My driver is downstairs. My car is in the public garage. That garage has poor lighting and 2 broken cameras. You know that because I own the company that services them." Nora raised an eyebrow. Luca caught himself. That sounded worse than I intended. It sounded exactly like a man accustomed to solving problems before anyone asks him. "I was offering transportation." And I said no. He nodded once. "Then I will walk you to your car and stop there." He did. No argument. No hand at her back. No order disguised as concern. At her sedan, Nora unlocked the door, but did not get in. "You could have taken the file," she said. "You could have called security and ended my contract." "I considered both." "Why didn't you?" "Because the last time Lucia asked me to look at evidence, I chose order over her judgment." His voice lowered. "I will not make that decision twice." Nora drove home, with the cracked metal secured in a portable evidence case beside her. By 9 the next morning, she and Luca were on the road to a modest neighborhood 40 miles north of the city. He had traded his tailored suit for a dark wool coat and open-collar shirt. Without the hospital boardroom around him, he appeared less untouchable and more tired. Dr. Miriam Cole lived in a narrow brick house with blue shutters and a ramp leading to the front porch. She answered the door using a cane. At 62, Miriam had silver-streaked brown hair, observant eyes, and the posture of someone who had spent decades delivering difficult news without softening the truth. Her gaze moved from Nora to Luca. "You finally came," she said. Luca went still. "You expected me?" "I expected your sister's conscience to outlive your family's silence." Miriam let them inside. Her sitting room contained medical journals, framed photographs, and a locked wooden cabinet. Nora introduced herself and explained the audit without revealing patient names. Miriam listened until Nora placed the cracked saint medal on the coffee table. The doctor closed her eyes. "She wore that every day," she said. "Lucia was your patient?" Nora asked. "For 6 hours." Luca leaned forward. "Why was she admitted?" "She was not injured. She came to bring me evidence." "What kind?" "A list of women we had hidden through the trauma ward. Some needed new identities. Some needed medical treatment without police notification. The original system was Lucia's idea." Nora felt the first reversal click into place. She created the erased billing codes? She created protective aliases, Miriam said. The records were supposed to remain sealed but intact, with 2 independent keys required for access, one held by the physician, one by the Foundation's legal officer. "Teresa," Luca said. Miriam's expression hardened. "At first, the system saved lives. Then your aunt changed the rules." "How?" "She began deciding which women were worth protecting and which disclosures were too costly to the family." Nora took out her notebook. Costly in what sense? Some abusers were donors. Some controlled unions, courts, or construction contracts. Teresa believed exposing them would bring retaliation against every woman in the network. "So she buried complaints," Nora said. "She buried outcomes, injuries, deaths, anything that threatened the alliances keeping the shelter funded." Luca's hands closed slowly. "Lucia found out. She found 7 cases where women were returned to men the Foundation considered politically untouchable. 2 later died." The room fell silent. Nora asked, "Why did Lucia's own file disappear?" Miriam looked at Luca. "Because she recorded a statement naming Teresa and the trustees who helped her. Lucia planned to take it to the state attorney general. And my signature froze the record." "Yes. Did Teresa order her death?" "I cannot prove that." "But you suspect it." "I suspect Lucia's car was inspected by a mechanic employed by a Moretti company the morning before the crash. I also know the brake report vanished from the police file." Luca stood abruptly and walked to the window. Nora watched his reflection. "Did you know about the mechanic?" "No." "Did Teresa?" "She approved all family fleet work at that time." Miriam rose with effort and crossed to the locked cabinet. She opened it with a key worn on a chain beneath her blouse. Inside sat a red leather ledger. "This contains the protected identities, original admission dates, and physician notes," she said. "Not copies, the only surviving index." Luca turned. "You kept it here?" "I kept it where Teresa believed fear would make me harmless." Nora did not touch the ledger. "Why show us now?" "Because someone accessed my former hospital credentials 3 days ago." Nora and Luca exchanged a glance. "The night Teresa entered the audit room," Nora said. Miriam nodded. "Whoever used them tried to locate the women still alive." The stakes changed at once. Nora asked, "How many?" 11. Luca took out his phone. "No," Nora said. He looked at her. "If you activate your security network, Teresa will know we found Miriam. Those women may be in immediate danger. And your network may include the person searching for them." His jaw tightened. "Then what do you suggest?" "Quiet contact through Miriam's survivor advocates. No Moretti vehicles. No family phones." Miriam looked between them. "There is one more thing." She removed a small recorder from beneath the ledger. "Lucia left this with me. She told me to release it only if Luca chose the Foundation over the truth again." Luca's expression changed. "Play it," he said. Miriam did not. "That choice belongs to Nora now," she replied. Lucia named her condition clearly. An independent examiner must decide when disclosure does the least harm. Nora stared at the recorder. It was not simply evidence. It was authority Lucia had deliberately placed outside the family. She took the ledger and recorder into formal custody. For the next 2 days, Nora worked from a borrowed office in Miriam's advocacy clinic. Luca provided hospital access, but kept his people away, as promised. Together, they compared the red ledger against the 47 erased claims. The first 29 women had been relocated safely. 8 had returned voluntarily or under pressure. 7 had suffered further violence. 3 were dead. Beside those 3 names, the same code appeared, F12. Nora traced it to Foundation Legal Review, Teresa's office. The attraction between Nora and Luca grew in the pauses rather than the declarations. He brought coffee once, then remembered she preferred tea. When she closed a folder and said she needed an hour alone, he left without asking where she was going. When she challenged his assumptions, he listened even when the answer wounded him. But trust did not grow at the same speed. On the 3rd evening, Nora returned from Miriam's archive room and found Luca standing over the red ledger. His phone lay beside it. "What happened?" she asked. One of the 11 surviving women was followed leaving work. Nora's chest tightened. Is she safe? For now. Who followed her? A private investigator connected to Teresa's attorney. The evidence was moving toward the women faster than they could protect them. "We need emergency relocation," Nora said. "I have already arranged it." "With whom?" "My security division." "You promised not to involve your network." "I promised not to expose Miriam." "I did not promise to leave 11 women unprotected." "You do not know which people in that division answer to Teresa." "I know exactly who answers to me." "That confidence is how your signature ended up on Lucia's file." The words landed hard. Luca closed the ledger. "The hospital board meets tomorrow morning. Teresa plans to challenge your authority and seize the audit. Then we present the evidence first." "No." Nora stared at him. "I am suspending the audit," he said. "Effective immediately." For a moment, she thought she had misunderstood. "You cannot." "I can, under the emergency risk provision. That provision requires documented danger to patients. I have documented it." He lifted a signed order from the desk. Nora recognized the language. It froze all claims evidence under Foundation control and removed her access. Just like Lucia's order. "You used the same mechanism," she said, "to keep Teresa from reaching the identities. You are taking the ledger." "Yes." "And the recorder?" "Yes." "You said you would not choose order over truth again." "I am choosing 11 living women over a public disclosure Teresa can exploit. Then give the evidence to an independent court. Not until the women are relocated." "How long?" "As long as necessary." That is how secrecy becomes permanent. He looked exhausted, but resolved. "I will not gamble with their lives to prove I have changed, and I will not surrender evidence to the institution that erased them." Luca reached for the ledger. Nora had anticipated the possibility. The book he took was the scanned working copy she had rebound in red leather that afternoon. The original ledger and Lucia's recorder were already in a bank evidence vault under Nora's name. She let him believe he had won. "You are suspended," Luca said quietly. "Leave the clinic tonight." Nora gathered her coat. "Do not contact me outside formal legal channels." "Nora, that is my boundary." He stepped back from the door. She walked past him without looking back. By sunrise, Luca's order had locked her out of the hospital system. By noon, Teresa's office issued a statement accusing an unnamed contractor of mishandling confidential survivor records. Nora responded by filing for an emergency public hearing before the hospital board. Miriam agreed to testify. Then Nora opened Lucia's recorder alone. Lucia's voice was weak but steady. "My brother will believe Aunt Teresa protected this family. He will not understand that she protected the men who made the family necessary." A pause followed. Then Lucia named the person who had ordered the files erased. It was Teresa. But the final sentence changed everything. "Luca knew there were deaths. He signed the freeze after I told him, Because Teresa promised him disclosure would trigger a war against every woman we had hidden. Nora stopped the recording. Luca had not been completely deceived. He had known enough to ask one more question, and had chosen not to. Was Luca right to hide the files long enough to protect the surviving women, or should Nora have exposed everything immediately, and why? Nora listened to Lucia's final sentence 3 times. Not because she had failed to understand it, but because understanding it changed the shape of every conversation she had shared with Luca. He had not known the full system. He had not known Teresa had manipulated patient records, or that Lucia's death might have been more than an accident. But he had known women had died. And when his sister asked him to challenge the foundation, he had accepted Teresa's warning that public truth would put more survivors at risk. Nora closed the recorder and sat alone in the dim evidence room until her anger became precise enough to use. By morning, the hospital board had agreed to hear her emergency petition. Teresa opposed a public session, citing patient confidentiality. Nora responded with a proposal that protected every survivor's identity while allowing the board to examine the system that had erased them. The hearing was scheduled for 2 o'clock in the foundation's main auditorium. Luca called once. Nora did not answer. He sent a single message. I will respect the boundary you set. I will be at the hearing, and I will not interfere with your evidence. She read it twice, then placed the phone face down. Respecting one boundary did not repair a broken trust, but it mattered that he had not tried to force the door open. At 1:30, Nora entered the auditorium, carrying a narrow evidence case. Dr. Miriam Cole walked beside her with her cane in one hand, and the original red ledger secured beneath the other arm. Hospital employees filled the rear rows. Board members sat behind a curved walnut table. A local court clerk had been invited to authenticate the chain of custody, and 2 state investigators waited near the side entrance. Teresa Moretti sat at the center of the board. She wore pearl earrings, a dark navy suit, and the composed expression of a woman who had survived decades by deciding which truths were allowed to exist. Luca sat several chairs away from her, not at the head of the table. He had surrendered that position before the hearing began. Nora noticed. She did not let it soften her. The board chair opened the session. Ms. Bell, you requested this hearing on the grounds that the Foundation concealed patient deaths and misused confidential medical systems. You may proceed. Nora placed the cracked silver saint medal beneath the document camera. Its fractured image appeared on the large screen behind her. This medal belonged to Lucia Moretti Calder, Nora said. It was recovered from a sealed claims box connected to one of 47 erased trauma admissions. A murmur moved through the audience. Teresa leaned toward her microphone. That statement alone violates the privacy rules Ms. Bell claims to defend. No living patient has been identified, Nora replied, and Lucia's identity was already removed from the system by an order attached to Luca Moretti's authorization. The emergency freeze appeared on the screen. Luca did not look away. Nora continued. The signature is valid. The purpose written above it was not. Teresa's voice remained calm. Mr. Moretti authorized an emergency confidentiality measure during a family crisis. No crime occurred. 3 women died after their admissions were marked resolved. Nora displayed 3 coded file numbers, not names. The Foundation knew they had been returned to dangerous homes. Their outcomes were removed from hospital review. 2 abusers remained major donors. The 3rd controlled contracts used by Moretti family companies. The room changed. Staff members stopped whispering. Board members leaned toward the documents in front of them. Teresa folded her hands. You are judging decisions made under conditions you cannot imagine. We were protecting dozens of women with no dependable law enforcement, no secure shelters, and no public agency capable of standing against the men pursuing them. Dr. Miriam rose. I can imagine those conditions, she said. I treated the women. The board chair recognized her. Miriam approached the witness table and placed the red ledger beside Nora's evidence case. This system began as a safeguard, she said. Lucia created coded admissions so survivors could receive care without alerting their abusers. Every record was meant to remain sealed, not destroyed. Every release required medical approval and independent legal review. Teresa looked at her with something colder than surprise. You stole Foundation property. I preserved medical evidence you ordered removed. The accusation hung clearly between them. Teresa turned toward the board. Dr. Cole was emotionally involved with the patients. She opposed every practical compromise. Sending women back to violent men was not a compromise, Miriam said. It was selection. Teresa's control slipped for the first time. You think I did not know what those men were capable of? If we exposed one judge, 3 police captains would stop cooperating. If we challenged one donor, the shelter would close. If we named one union leader, every relocated woman connected to his organization would be hunted. And so, you decided which women could be sacrificed, Nora said. I decided how many could be saved. There it was. Not a denial. A belief. Nora turned to the board. That belief is why this system failed. Teresa Moretti treated women as numbers in a survival calculation. Once secrecy became more important than individual lives, the Foundation stopped protecting patients and began protecting itself. Teresa's eyes moved to Luca. You understand, she said to him. You understood then. Every person in the room followed her gaze. Luca rose slowly. Yes, he said. Nora felt the impact before he continued. I knew women had died. Teresa's expression eased, as though she believed he had finally come home to her side. Luca stepped away from the board table. My sister told me the Foundation had concealed deaths. I did not believe she had enough evidence to justify exposing the network. Teresa told me disclosure would endanger every survivor we had relocated. It would have, Teresa said. Perhaps. Luca looked toward Nora, but he did not ask for understanding. I signed the freeze anyway. I did not read the attached record. I did not demand independent review. I chose stability because it allowed me to believe I was protecting more people than I was abandoning. Sevitorium. The auditorium was silent. He continued. That choice gave my authority to someone who used it to bury my sister's warning. I cannot call that ignorance. It was cowardice made respectable by power. Teresa's face hardened. Do not destroy this family to impress an auditor. Nora saw the old pressure in the sentence. Blood before truth. Loyalty before accountability. Luca removed the Moretti Foundation signet from his finger. I am not doing this for Nora. He placed the ring on the board table. I am doing it because she was right before I was ready to admit what being right would cost me. Teresa stood. Sit down. No. One word. Quietly delivered. It carried more force than a threat. Luca faced the state investigators. I am releasing all Foundation records to your custody. I am also waiving the family's contractual power to block forensic review. Several board members began speaking at once. Teresa struck the table with her palm. You cannot waive controlling rights without a family vote. I already transferred my voting shares this morning. The board chair stared at him. Transferred to whom? An independent patient trust. The Foundation no longer belongs to the Moretti family. Teresa went pale. The move did not merely remove Luca from leadership. It ended the family's power to reclaim the institution after the scandal passed. Nora had expected an apology. She had not expected him to dismantle the structure that made his promises meaningful. Teresa looked toward the audience, searching for allies. He is acting under emotional influence. This woman has manipulated him. Nora opened the evidence case. No, she said. I gave him every opportunity to hide behind me. He chose not to. She placed Lucia's recorder on the table. This is Lucia Moretti Calder's final statement. Before it is played, I want the record to reflect that the original file was entrusted to an independent examiner, not to the Moretti family. The court clerk confirmed the custody seal. Nora pressed play. Lucia's voice filled the auditorium. She named Teresa, the trustees, and the legal officers who had approved the erased outcomes. She described the 7 women returned to abusers and the internal warning Luca had failed to pursue. Then came the final passage. If Luca hears this, he will want to believe he was protecting us. Tell him protection without truth becomes another locked room. Tell him the women do not need a family to decide which of them deserve to be saved. Teresa remained standing after the recording ended. Her eyes shone, but she did not cry. "You think this proves I hated those women?" she asked. "I gave 40 years of my life to keeping them alive. It proves you believed only you could decide the cost," Nora said. "And you would have done better?" "I would have built a system where no single family had that power." Teresa looked at the red ledger, then at the investigators approaching her. Her defeat did not come from carelessness. It came from the belief she still could not surrender, that her intentions entitled her to control the truth. The state investigators escorted her from the auditorium for formal questioning. 2 trustees followed voluntarily. The audience remained seated, stunned by the speed with which an empire built on silence had become evidence. Luca signed his resignation before the hearing ended. He did not approach Nora. He did not ask whether she forgave him. He left through a side door alone. 6 months later, the former foundation reopened under a new name, the Patient Truth Office. Nora served as its first independent director. Miriam led the medical ethics panel. Survivors controlled access to their own records, and no emergency seal could be issued without review from 3 unrelated authorities. 11 women were safely relocated. 3 families received formal acknowledgement of deaths the hospital had hidden. Criminal cases moved slowly, but they moved in daylight. Luca cooperated with every investigation. He testified against 2 former family attorneys, surrendered business records, and accepted the loss of contracts that had supported much of his legitimate empire. He never asked Nora to speak for him. Their first private conversation happened 7 months after the hearing. He came to the Patient Truth Office without security and waited in the public reception area until Nora agreed to see him. "You could have called," she said. "You asked for formal channels. That was months ago. I did not assume the boundary expired because time passed." The answer reached a place in her that apologies had not. Nora folded her hands on the desk. "I forgive the man who was afraid to look closely enough." Luca's expression tightened. "But forgiveness is not the same as trusting you again," she continued. "And it is not reconciliation." "I know." "Do you?" "Yes." He looked around the office she had built from the ruins of his family's control. "That is why I changed what I could before knowing whether you would ever let me into this room." She did not offer him certainty. She offered coffee. Months later, coffee became walks. Walks became dinners without guards, secrets, or promises too large to test. Luca learned to ask before helping. Nora learned that caution did not require closing every door forever. Their reconciliation began not with a ring, but with a public forum where Luca sat in the audience while Nora explained why institutions must never confuse silence with safety. When the event ended, she found him waiting beneath the hospital chapel's stained glass window. He held no flowers and made no speech. He simply offered his hand. Nora looked at it, then at the man who had lost his authority, his family's approval, and much of his empire, because the truth required more than regret. This time, she chose to take it. Love cannot make control honorable, and good intentions cannot erase the harm caused by silence. Real accountability begins when a person tells the truth without demanding forgiveness as payment. Nora protected her dignity by refusing to confuse compassion with trust. Luca proved change by surrendering power before he knew whether love would return. Some relationships deserve a second chance, but only when both people can stand freely at the same door. Tell me in the comments, was Luca's sacrifice enough to earn reconciliation, or should Nora have forgiven him without taking him back? Subscribe to Mafia Boss Destiny for more stories about powerful men forced to choose between family loyalty, public truth, and the women strong enough to walk away. And in the next story, a chubby estate conservator opens a sealed wedding dress and finds the mafia boss's missing inheritance stitched inside the hem.